Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Underground. This is the Intel update for January 5th through the 11th, 2025. In classic fashion, it's been a very busy week, so let's get right to it. Starting off in the southeast region, I briefly wanted to keep people's minds on the situation in western North Carolina with regards to the Hurricane Helene recovery efforts. Things are not going well. The local, county, city, state, federal agencies have not been particularly helpful over the past couple of months, and most of the self-created aid, either by people just trying to do the best they can locally or from volunteer agencies coming in from outside the area. It's been a fight tooth and nail just to get anything done in western North Carolina. Most of the area is still completely devastated, and over the past couple of weeks, the whole area has gotten, in some places over a foot of snow. So again, that makes recovery efforts very challenging. And I think, this is my personal opinion, but I think that it's fairly obvious right now that the federal government is just kind of hoping that people will forget about what's going on in western North Carolina, so they can just go ahead and cut aid and just kind of forget about the situation entirely. So I did want to bring the spotlight back to western North Carolina to keep this incident in people's hearts and minds, so to speak, because this crisis is nowhere near over, right? There are still 3,500 families without any sort of housing, and FEMA is trying to kick them out of hotels. So as of last night, I saw that FEMA did graciously allow one single extra day of housing for the people in western North Carolina so that they can get out of their temporary housing in the middle of a snowstorm. So again, I'm not going to talk about this one very much because it just gets me very unnecessarily angry, and I don't want to push that on you guys. So I will just cover that also in this region, the White House the other day announced that they will be giving or they will be covering 100% of the aid and recovery efforts needed for California. So we're talking about potentially hundreds of billions of dollars over a period of 180 days. So California has a blank check. They have literally been given a blank check by the federal government for anything and everything that might happen over the next 180 days. So again, not going to comment on that too much, but we'll get to the situation in California in just a moment. Before we get to the wildfire situation, I did want to briefly mention something that occurred yesterday, which is the theft of 3 Humvees from an Army Reserve Center in Tustin. This one was kind of interesting because they actually were successful in getting 3 vehicles. So I'm not entirely certain what's going on with this, but here you can see the solicitation from the detectives working the case. Now, I know what a lot of people are probably thinking is this preparation for a terror attack? Because I have seen a lot of speculation on social media that says that the thieves made off with weapons and ammo and explosives and all that kind of stuff. So far, officially, none of that has been taken. All they took were some Humvees. You can see all the stuff they made off with. It's basically just scrap metal and anything that looked valuable laying around. Again, an Army Reserve Center, I'm not entirely certain they have an armory there, right? They may not have an armory for weapons or explosives at all. So some old busted Humvees from the GWAT era just sitting in a lot. All it takes is a couple of bolt cutters, and there you go, free Humvee, right? So I think that's probably what happened. I just wanted to kind of pump the brakes on that speculation right now. There have been no confirming reports of any explosives or weapons stolen. So again, that kind of mitigate that little bit of information mitigates the terrorism risk, does it not? Right? Of course, this is just my assessment, but I think that if anybody's going to take the time to steal 18 bayonets and 40 pair of binoculars, it doesn't really sound like they're interested in causing a lot of harm. It looks like they're trying to hawk a bunch of stuff at a pawn shop. So, that's the kind of thing. You have to look at the opportunity cost. If it was just the Humvees, I'd say, maybe a little suspicious. But it looks like they took everything that wasn't nailed down. So again, concerning. Be on the lookout for Humvees being driven by people who don't look like they're in the military, and that's the kind of thing that's going on out there in California. Now, moving to the fire itself, I'll get to the more up-to-date battle tracking map here in just a moment. But really, the situation has gone from bad to worse in many regards. Some places, in some areas, it's maintained the status quo, but the fires continue to spread. One of the complicating factors, in addition to this crisis, we're getting a lot of complications from many different angles. We've got the political thing, we've got the financial thing, we've got water shortages, we've got infrastructure crumbling, we've got social decay and societal collapse kind of thing. So this is all kind of making the situation worse. If it was just a wildfire and we didn't have to worry about any of the other stuff, I think it wouldn't be as bad as it is. However, this has been a long time coming, as many people know, throughout the firefighting community. Los Angeles being at extreme risk for this exact scenario. So, some of the coordination challenges that I noted this morning. I wanted to, again, address a rumor that I have seen, and I don't know if it's entirely true or not, but again, time is of the essence, so I've got to kind of get this information out quickly. I'm seeing claims be made that California has held up upwards of 60 firefighting rigs from Oregon and other neighboring states in Sacramento for inspections of emissions, right? Emissions testing to make sure the fire trucks are not, emitting too many, greenhouse gases, I guess. What I do know so far is that this is partially true, at least. Sacramento is the staging area for a lot of outside resources. You have to think, this is very, very big. Cal Fire and California at large is a very large state, and we're talking potentially hundreds of firefighting rigs moving around just from outside the area. That's not including the thousands that are inside the state, already. So I don't know if this claim is true. I don't know if California is so backwards minded that they think that they need to conduct emissions testing on a firefighting truck. I don't know if, it sounds just like California, doesn't it? But again, this could also just be staging woes. It could be somebody at the staging depot just complaining that things are taking too long. Once again, think higher level than you might want to think. You do not want to send every uncoordinated fire truck right to the fire. You want to send them to a staging area so that levels of command can take control and send them to where they need to go. Otherwise, you're just having a lot of people show up, clog up the roads, and there's going to be a very, very inefficient use of resources. So once again, if California is concerned about emissions testing of fire trucks in any case whatsoever, even before the fire, I think we all can probably agree that's pretty ridiculous. However, I don't know if the recent claims that are being made are true or if this is more of a staging thing. Again, a lot of people will take a photo and they'll take a video of some inefficiency, right? We all know the story of DOT workers, 15 guys standing around watching one guy shovel something. Same kind of thing happens in firefighting, but we focus on that sometimes and not the higher level picture. Again, with any sort of government response, you're going to have a very inefficient response, right? That's just the way that it is. But again, I'm trying to keep things as neutral and as realistic as possible because the situation in California is not developing super well right now. One of the other main concerns is the leadership problems within the Los Angeles Fire Department. So again, this is just kind of a political thing that it gets people really inflamed, but it must be noted that the political and leadership problems within Los Angeles at large, there's a lot of infighting going on. I've seen reports that the Los Angeles Fire Department chief has been fired as of this morning. I don't know if that's true or not. Once again, I've seen reports that says that the mayor retracted the firing. Again, I don't have enough time to verify these things all the way down to the ground. And there's a lot of very bad information going on out there. A lot of it being pushed by, mainstream media and government sources. But once again, I think that one of the major things to keep in mind, again, people like me tend to think a little bit differently any time a natural disaster comes out. And we have to think, is this potentially a malign actor? Considering the context of what I'm going to talk about is developing right now in Southeast Asia, I think we probably need to consider this. Right now, I think most people, the general consensus, right, from many authority figures and from many people in the know and in the career field, is that most of these fires, maybe not all of them, but most of them are probably arson. We know this for sure with a lot of the smaller fires that are kind of popping up and dotting around. Now, I don't know if some of the larger fires are arson, but it certainly seems like a lot of these are deliberate. But again, this is a speculation thing that we need a lot of proper investigation to discern. The reason that we have to lean on this right now is, again, risk assessment, right? And we have to assume worst case scenario, then walk it back to a more reasonable perspective once we have information. And in this case, this is exactly the kind of thing that we would see if a malign actor were to want to cause some harm, right? Everyone from just a homeless guy setting a fire to some kind of, pyromaniac kind of thing, or someone who's a little bit more educated and more deliberate in what they do, right? Or even a nation-state actor, right? Right up front, if China wanted to start something, this would be what they would do, okay? So this is one of those things on that checklist of potentially China becoming a little bit more kinetic in their military aspirations. setting fire to Los Angeles is one thing that I would expect a Chinese sleeper cell to do. Again, pure speculation, but we have to kind of think of these things, especially in the context, again, like I said, of what's going on in Southeast Asia. Now, before we get to the map, I wanted to also mention a sort of incident that's kind of going on that kind of shows or is more of an indicator of the decision-making process of some of these commands here. Now, I don't want to armchair quarterback any of this, of course. However, we have to kind of look at some of these incidents as they occur, right? And one of the incidents that occurred was one of the Super Scooper aircraft, the marine-based firefighting aircraft that was working the Palisades fire, allegedly struck a drone or something in the air yesterday, and it grounded not just this aircraft but all of the aircraft on the fire for a period of many hours. So once again, just me thinking from a more military perspective, we have to understand risk assessment and risk management. In this case, we've got damage to the leading edge of one of the wingtips of one of the Super Scooper aircraft, and the aircraft itself did not crash. They had landed again and inspected and found a hole in the wing, right? But again, if you're thinking of more military, time was of the essence, kind of we've got to go sort of thing. I'm surprised that some 18-year-old maintainer with some safety wire and speed tape didn't just fix this in like 5 minutes and then get it back into the air, because people are dying out there, So I don't know. We may see more and more of this, but this is once again something I kind of want to talk about more when it comes to risk management, risk assessment, and mitigating risks, right? So with that out of the way, let's jump to the map, and I'll show you something that I kind of have thrown together over the past few days with regards to an incident tracking map, a battle tracking map that many of you can use. So, all right, everyone. So here is the battle tracking map that I've created, the incident response or incident tracking map that I've created here in ArcGIS Online. For those of you who did not see my previous post or my previous video on this, the link for this map will be in the description box below. So once again, this is something that I've done before, but I'm going to start doing this a little bit more deliberately. So if there is an incident that requires some sort of geospatial component, if you need to just really look at a map, this is something that I'm going to do for the foreseeable future. Again, this is a very expensive service to maintain from my end, so special thank you to all the Patreon supporters out there who made this possible. But for now, this is what we've got. So again, this is not just one map for Los Angeles, as we can see over here on the other side, on the side of the screen here. I just have one folder for the LA fires. If there are multiple incidents going on around the world, I can track all of them on this one map. So don't think this is just something I'm doing for the Los Angeles fire. Anytime there's some kind of major event going on around the world, I can create a folder for this, and then once this LA fire is done, I can archive it, and you can see the historic data. So let's go ahead and start with some bookmarks here. Again, the overall view of the area here is, you can see a lot of fires. Now, again, this time of year in California, this is decently odd. This is not the peak wildfire season. This is the off season. So you have to wonder really what's going on with a lot of these fires, right? In any case, it's hard to say if this recent incident is all linked together into one sort of, magic storm of weather conditions. But again, I don't want to speculate on the cause too much here. So let's go ahead and take a look down here at the Palisades region here in Santa Monica. As we can see, let me cover some of the things here on the map. So this is the fire extent. Now let me go ahead, getting a little nerdy for a moment, let me go ahead and turn some of these layers off so you can see what's really going on here. Now here in the base data folder, we've got critical infrastructure. Where's fire data here? So let's turn all of this off, and we will see what's going on. So right now we're just seeing the evacuation areas that Los Angeles County has mandated, right? So yellow is get ready to move, and red is evacuate mandatory, right? So let's go ahead and throw on the CAL FIRE official map of the fire extent. Now, as we can see, this map is a little bit out of date. This is because CAL FIRE, to the best of my knowledge, does not update this map but once a day. This is more of a strategic resource that can be, kind of summarized in a day. Again, fires move around a lot, and it would be a lot of effort to track each little point that the fire advances. So Again, aerial surveys are conducted to create this map, and it's a very good resource. But so again, we've got a pretty good strategic resource here, but I think we can do a little bit better. And let's go ahead and throw in one of these satellite options here. This is the MODIS data from the MODIS sensor platform. This is a satellite, again, that orbits the Earth and shows hotspots. So again, each one of these little red dots is a hotspot detected by the satellite. And as we can see, the CAL FIRE map, is a great resource, but it's a little bit out of date. So maybe we can get a little bit better of a picture as to where this fire may be starting. Now again, this is not a perfect resource, but it's just one tool in the toolbox that can kind of help us out a little bit. Now, when we combine that with another resource, let's turn on the VIIRS sensor as well. Again, let me turn off the MODIS one so we can just see VIIRS. Same, right? Same, but a little bit different. And that is these little dots up here that show a little bit finer resolution as to where these hotspots are located. Now, when we combine the two, let's see here, turn them both on, we can get a little bit better, clear picture as to what's going on here. And when we add in a third satellite detection method, let me turn on just that one, NOAA's HMS platform, now we can see a lot more up to date. So again, dots equal heat. So this shows that the fire here, in this case, is advancing. If we turn, actually, let's turn all of them on here, we can get a better picture in a lot more real time, I suppose, than you would ordinarily get just by looking at the CAL FIRE maps. We can clearly see that this area here is very much in danger of the fire expanding, which is why we have all of these evacuation orders going on here. So once again, if we're looking at this kind of mapping structure here, it's very, very dangerous to start interpreting fire maps, right? This is not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is get a little bit more fidelity on what's going on the ground, a little bit more up to date, right? So this map can be opened by a single person with a single smartphone. So if you're on the ground in the area and you still have cell service, again, of course, this requires a cell service. I'm working on other options, but for now, if you can access the internet and you have a web browser on your phone, one single tap, one single link will bring you to this, and you can turn on and off layers as you wish. Now, I have them all turned on because what I want people to do is at the expense of people saying, the fire's not coming towards me. You don't want to do that, right? We want to actually make sure that people are not, reducing the risk. However, if you're in, say, one of these areas over here in Encino, as the fire is advancing towards Encino, this is something that you might be, maybe want to be a little bit more mindful of, because as we can see, the fire right now, so again, let's check out one of these hotspots here from the NASA HMS fire detection system, and this is at 10:29 UTC. And right now, as I'm recording this, it is 1600 UTC, so again, we're several hours behind in terms of the satellite data, but it's more up to date than once a day, isn't it? So as we can see, this is one of the main values for having a system like this. Of course, it does rely on a cellular connection if you wanted to pull it up on your smartphone, but if you are panicking, if you've got family who are trying to get as much information as possible in an easy-to-see format, this can help. I'm not saying it's the best, I'm just saying it's what I've got to help, right? So this not just applies to this crisis, but other crises as well. I'm going to keep this going for as long as I can, right? But really the goal here is if you have a smartphone and you have an internet connection still, you can access this map with a single tap. You don't need to have any app. You don't need to have any training. You don't need to know how to do anything. You can send this to the most technologically illiterate person on the planet, and they can still look at the map and see what's going on. So once again, if we jump over here to the map, if we had, say, for instance, just left on the CAL FIRE maps, which are updated as often as CAL FIRE does, if we were to just leave the CAL FIRE maps up and just go from that, we might not have a clear picture as of the danger, right? So if we turn on all of our satellite information, well, now we get a better picture, and we can even see that, say, some of these areas right here in south of Encino are, they're starting to get hot, right? At least I can't tell if there's a fire there, but I can say that at least 3 separate satellite systems are detecting fire in this area, or something hot. So this shows a little bit more of the fire advance than just going off of what you see on social media. So once again, this is really just that. So again, if you are Sort of tech illiterate. I've got bookmarks over here too, so let's go again back down to Santa Monica where we can talk about this a little bit. I've put purple circles and polygons on the map to depict areas where I can find looting. Once again, you can just click on this and see looting reports. I've linked to a couple of Twitter pages here. For the most part, it's hard to track where the looting is occurring because, again, people are either evacuated, and the people who are still in some of these areas, they're there to loot. So this is a complex situation, so they're not obviously not going to record themselves looting, so we have this little bit of an intelligence gap. But it seems fairly certain that as soon as these evacuation zones pop up, and in this case they're popping up all over the northern flank of the fire this morning, as these evacuation areas hit, a lot of people, a lot of the looters start organizing, start hitting up and encasing these areas to see who's leaving, right? Now here's the problem with that. People are seeing this and they're saying, well, I don't want my stuff looted, so they're not evacuating, they're not leaving. So it's catch-22, right? I mean, what's more valuable, your house or, you know, your house is going to burn up either way, so what does it matter if people steal stuff from it, you know, if that's the kind of thing, if you're in the fire zone. So far, just from my own very limited assessment, it looks like CAL FIRE has been very, very conservative, very, very mindful of this, and they have not evacuated a lot of areas that they've waited a long time, right? Because they know that people are concerned about this sort of thing. So in that regard, it's kind of an interesting note. But let's check out Malibu for a second. Of course, most of the traffic going east and west, east from Malibu, and then over here in Santa Monica, west from Santa Monica. All these roads are closed. The Pacific Coast Highway is closed along the coast there, and they've got National Guard checkpoints up. Again, almost all of the major roads going into where the fire is at are closed, and there are National Guard checkpoints or police checkpoints there. So most of the time they've got, you know, guard guys standing around checking IDs to make sure people actually do live in a neighborhood before allowing them back in. Especially some of these areas along the coast, which are not burning anymore, but they are, that people are still trying to move back in, right? So move back in as quick as they can to prevent the looters in case their house survived. But again, we can see the extent here in Palisades. It's pretty significant. So let's move over to Hollywood. Of course, Hollywood Hills, Sunset Boulevard, mass looting as you might expect, mostly because a lot of people who live in this area can afford to evacuate. Because they've probably got another residence somewhere else. Again, not to get really into the socioeconomic factors at play here, but you have to remember this entire area is extremely high wealth. And what does that generally mean? People can afford to leave, right? They have either another residence somewhere else, or they're insured, or some form or fashion. They can afford to lose a $4 or $5 million house. So this is known. This is very much known. And even places right here, which are not near a fire at all, they have a lot of looting there. But, you know, down in Los Angeles proper, it's just kind of like a normal day, right? So this is the kind of interesting dynamic that we have to kind of be aware of when bringing a geospatial component into it. It's not just the data, it's also the people behind the data too. So again, moving over to Altadena up here on Sierra Madre Boulevard. It looks like everything north of Sierra Madre Boulevard is probably going to be evacuated at some point. They've been expanding these evacuation zones progressively further and further south throughout the past couple of days. So we'll see. Once again, here's an old expired looting circle, and now the area that was looted is now just gone, right? Most of Altadena has been burned. So once again, preventing the looting didn't really do much in this particular case, but so that's pretty much the general overall summary. Just to wrap things up really quickly, Pasadena fire is moving north into Encino. Looks like we might see some more evacuations throughout the day on that. Hard to say though. The Kenneth fire continues to burn, but it looks like it may have mostly just burned out. This was an arson case, or is being investigated as an arson case, but that one's largely no longer a factor. Moving over here to Sierra Madre, Altadena area. This area remains kinetic, as we can see by the fire points, but once again, it's hard to say how much this is going to move south into the urban area. Again, it all depends on winds, and by the time I've edited this and gotten this out the door, it's probably going to change very much. So once again, the live updating map here is probably your best resource if you're tracking this sort of thing in the Los Angeles area. So jumping back to the slides here, let's wrap things up today with a quick note that is more of a strategic indication and warning of something potentially happening in Southeast Asia. Once again, all eyes are kind of on China and Taiwan and, the preparations for that kind of conflict. There are vastly different schools of thought, vastly different ways of thinking and assessments on how this is going to go. A lot of people are kind of sold on China not preparing for war, and that other people are saying China is going to go to war within the next 60 days. So you can see that's a pretty wide range of assessments. I'm not a Southeast Asia guy, but I can point to what a lot of other guys are talking about right now, which is China building barges. From Napoleon Bonaparte to the Viet Cong, any time an adversary or some kind of power starts building amphibious equipment, pay attention. This is important. So China has been observed to be building at least 5 amphibious landing platform dock vessel sorts of things. I don't know what the official classification of these yet, but it seems like it's more along the lines of just being classified as an amphibious operations vessel at the moment. Essentially, just to show you how these things work here, this is what is assessed to be how they operate. Very much just a barge to help land tanks en masse on some of Taiwan's more restricted beach access points, right? So again, we have seen satellite imagery has very strongly indicated that China is building at least 5 of these right now. You can't really dismiss that. That's kind of a big deal. These things are very expensive, so this could be an indicator for months to years. I would think that, China building these sorts of things is going to take some time, and China is going to probably need several hundred of these. So just starting with 5 is, something that is going to be very interesting to see, because we're probably going to see them training on them, using them more. They already have some similar things, but these are kind of interesting in that they're very large. But anyway, I did want to point it out because people are kind of talking about it. It's not really an indication for China's going to invade Taiwan in the next month or so. But once again, China has a very large shipbuilding capacity, and they can build a lot of these very, very quickly. Quality-wise, hard to say, right? I guess we'll find out, right? But really, I did want to mention it because it's kind of pertinent in terms of what's going on in California. Once again, if China is really, really, really set on going to war with the United States, and China is really, really hard set on taking Taiwan, one of the things you might want to do is cripple the West Coast infrastructure, because Port of Los Angeles, San Diego, all these places are going to be very, very big commercial and military epicenters for moving assets across the Pacific for the United States. So you've really got to look at this from the perspective of what an analyst might do, which is think, okay, we've got massive fires crippling the infrastructure of a major city on the West Coast in the same general region where we're going to be flooding lots of resources in through the West Coast to go to the Pacific theater. You've really got to think about these sorts of things, right? So it's one of those things where just don't panic now, but just be mindful of it. And when I mention it again, some other kind of development, you'll have this knowledge in the back of your mind, right? So that's pretty much all I have for today. Let me wrap things up with the GhostNet reports. Of course, lots of reports this week, lots of news coming back and forth, a lot of people testing things out. But let me show you something interesting. What I can do with regards to this map that I'm doing is I can actually push, say, for instance, I saw this report here, this rolling blackouts continue kind of report, right? So a local report from someone in the area of the California wildfires. Well, if we jump back over here to the battle tracking map, would you look at that? I can actually drop the text of these GhostNet reports on the map as well if it's referring to something that's geolocatable, right? So once again, it's not the best thing since sliced bread. There's easier ways of doing it. There's cheaper ways of doing this. There's better ways of doing this. This is just the happy medium that I've kind of settled on before. I've used it for many, many years, but now I'm getting into it a little bit more deliberately now. So hopefully this will continue to be a lot better of an operation in the future. So yeah, I thought this might be a little bit helpful for some of you out there who are interested in this kind of thing. I'm going to make it a lot easier as time goes on to incorporate this so that you only have to have a one tap to export to ATAC or to CalTopo. So for those of you who use those kinds of platforms, this will integrate very, very well because you can export a lot of these layers to KML files, right? So again, getting a little nerdy, getting a little in the weeds right now for it, but I figured it would be a good time to to use this sort of tool and set it up so that we could start building familiarity with it, because once again, this is just using the LA fires kind of situation as a template, and I figured that since I'm working on it, I might as well show people what I'm working on, and I might as well let people get some use out of it, because it seems to be like there are not that many maps that are updating very quickly with regards to what's going on, and not any maps that I know of at all that are showing where the looting is happening and where some of these more criminal aspects are going on. So I will try to keep this updated as best I can, but no guarantees. As you guys can probably imagine, incident tracking or battle tracking takes a long time, and it's not easy to do, right? This is difficult stuff, so it takes you spend a lot of time combing the internet, right, for good information to put on the map. But hopefully this helps a lot of you out there. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, but this is what I'm kind of working on for now, to get information out there a little bit more quickly than just, you know, a wire report once a day. So that's pretty much all I have for today. Again, here are the sources. Thank you again for all of you out there who supported me and have made this possible. I literally couldn't have done it without you, because a lot of the layers that I need access to are very expensive. So hopefully this will be more of a public service thing, but just know, all of you guys out there who are using this information for free, you're welcome to do so, but just know that it's the guys on Patreon who have made it possible, not me. So thank you all for all of that. I'm just kind of filling in the data, doing the best I can in that regard. But again, thank you for all of that. So I'll definitely keep at it, and well, I guess we'll see what next week brings. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. And as always, fight in the shade.